small family based in Switzerland who loves to discover the world, preferably away from the classic travel routes. When we flew to Sri Lanka in December 2017, there were only 2 of us, but that would change soon. Today our son also shares our passion to explore. On the plane we got to know the open, positive Sri Lankan manner when the person sitting next to us raved about his country. We had many encounters like this on our travels.
The first few days in Colombo were very rainy, but that didn't bother us. We were happy to escape the European winter and happily plunged into the crowd. We were especially fascinated by the lively Peta trading district, with its many colorful shops, tuk-tuks and busy suppliers. And we were set to the rhythm of Sri Lanka in a very short time. We strolled along the Galle beach and watched the construction work in the newly built district. Now we were hungry, and with our sun yellow fish curry and the crab curry, we were immersed in the cuisine of Sri Lanka.
Curious to discover the country, our way leads us further south, and we bought a train ticket to Galle. We always travel second class to experience normal everyday life and to better feel the vibe of the country and its people. We have already met a lot of nice people on our travels, but in no country have we been welcomed with such a warm and curious manner as in Sri Lanka. There were often moments in which we noticed that someone passed us several times or smiled at us to start a conversation. Never intrusive, but always with an honest interest. When our train pulled in, we were probably a little too slow and all the seats were already occupied. So we stood at the open train door, which turned out to be a real stroke of luck. The wind blew around our noses and the tingling feeling of limitless freedom flowed through us. We left the skyscrapers of Colombo and drove along the coast. Also here in the overcrowded train, it didn't take long before we got into a conversation with several Sri Lankans. A Navy officer invited us to dinner with the words, "My house is small, but you are warmly invited." We would have gladly accepted, but it didn't work out due to lack of time.
We noticed that we were asked again and again how we like Sri Lanka. And when we answered, "Sri Lanka is beautiful," we had already made a friend.
The train didn't go really fast, but with the good conversations and the wonderful view, the time flew by and we reached Galle with sunny weather. From the train station to our hotel in Galle Fort, we made a little detour via the market and had a pineapple cut for us for 150 Sri Lankan rupees. Strengthened, we passed the tuk-tuk drivers, who always have a good offer for you, into the colonial old town where the Portuguese, Danes and English have left their marks. Our small family-run hotel was across from a temple, and from the veranda we could watch the monks preparing a ceremony. In this hotel we were really warm looked after from the whole family, and the lady of the house prepared a delicious breakfast for us every day, with everything our heart desires.
It was so good. The next morning we made our way to the bus station on the edge of the old town. We got on a bus to Koggala beach to see the famous stick fishers. The beach is beautiful, but in these days there is hardly any fishing on the sticks. Shortly after our arrival, a fisherman who was sitting in the shade offered us to pull a traditional cloth over his sporty trousers and to pose for photos on a stick, of course for money. We then declined with thanks and enjoyed the beautiful beach without any fake fishing.
On the way back we got off the bus a little earlier and walked along the coast back to Galle Fort. On the way to the hotel we passed the parade, and our host told us that there will be a great full moon tonight and that the sunset should be extraordinary. So we went straight to the fort wall to not miss the spectacle. Within a few minutes the light changed from a glowing gold to a pink lighting mood. A Chinese couple also used the extraordinary spectacle for their wedding photos. The Buddhist celebration starts as soon as it was dark.
Then we strolled through the old town and discovered a small Indian restaurant near the lighthouse with a sea view and without tourists. There we treated ourselves to a delicious dinner. Then we fell into bed, happy and fulfilled from the day.
This morning too, our walk led us to the bus station. Our destination today was Jungle Beach. In the right bus we looked for free seats. The first row is reserved for monks. Payment is made on the bus and there were always many snack sellers. Entertainment is also provided with a screen and lots of Sri Lankan pop music. The buses are artistically painted and on the inside often decorated very colorful. After a short but adventurous drive, we first bought a fresh coconut for 100 rupees. On a booth a little further away, a coconut then only cost 60 rupees. The prices often vary widely and it's worth comparing and negotiating. On the way to the beach we met some monkeys in the forest, and after a short jump into the water we decided to walk along the coast and on small paths through the forest to Unawatuna beach. There we treated ourselves to a typical Sri Lankan rice and curry before we took the bus back to Galle.
The next morning we packed up our luggage and made our way to Mirissa beach. We decided to spend the day on the beach before continuing to Udawalawe National Park in the late afternoon. The place Mirissa has many shops and restaurants and is no longer an insider tip. But there is a totally relaxed atmosphere on the beach. We enjoyed the day at the seaside. The water was lovely. A cat kept us company and we ordered our favorite pancake with coconut and honey. And because we liked them so much, we immediately thanked the kitchen staff before we took the bus to Udawalawe National Park.
Our accommodation with the decorative name Resort consisted of one room, ours, and the rest of the house was under construction. But the boys were super helpful and organized us a driver for the safari for the next day, and even cooked us a dinner as there was no restaurant anywhere. Our driver picked us up at 5:30 in the morning for the 3-hour safari. For a while we got to see monkeys, peacocks and various birds, but then the first elephants appeared and we could even see elephant mothers with their little ones. But it only took a few minutes and a whole group of jeeps came driving up, and there was a real crowd among the elephants. Each driver, hoping for a good tip, wanted to bring his guests as close as possible to the animals. It was, of course, wonderful to watch the elephants up close, but the romantic idea of a safari was in reality a very commercial matter for us, and we are not sure if it's very animal friendly. We will rethink if we go on a safari like that anymore. Now it was time for the highlands of Sri Lanka, and we took the bus to Ella.
Our accommodation in Ella was a bit outside, and on the way we met some very cheeky monkeys. We immediately made our way to the train station and took the shortcut across the tracks. We wanted to get tickets for a train ride through the tea plantation to Kandy. At the train station we found out that the railway staff is on a strike and that we should try again tomorrow. So we made our way to Little Adams Peak through the tea fields and past the barracks of the tea pickers and farm workers. Then we strolled to the town and treated ourselves to a delicious rice and curry and a roti with coconut and honey. It was so good.
The next morning, after another unsuccessful attempt to buy train tickets, we made our way to Ella Rock. The paths again lead a bit over the tracks. The right way to Ella Rock was not easy to find, and on the way we met a young European couple and a Sri Lankan. As it turned out, they were lost, and the man had imposed himself on them as a guide. We offered them to come with us, and the man got really angry. After a short discussion, we shocked him off. That was the only moment in the land of smiles that we'd seen someone so angry. Finally, at the top, we enjoyed the absolutely phenomenal view.
The next morning we went to the train station first, still on strike. There is nothing you can do. The dogs thought so too. We rented a scooter and drove to the beautiful landscape past tea fields and small towns to Haputale. From there we went over a small road to Dambatene tea factory, which we visited. Up in the highlands there was a mystical atmosphere with clouds of fog, and it was also much cooler. The tea pickers were very happy to be photographed and about some change from everyday life with some visitors. In Sri Lanka, tea picking is seen as a purely woman's work. As we learned, a tea picker earns a ridiculous amount of 500 rupees a day.
When we made another photo stop at a beautiful viewpoint on the way to Nuwara Eliya, we saw a woman who was chopping wood in the front of an old tin hut. She smiled at us and we asked her something. Without answering, she called into the hut and her husband came out. Then we realized that this was their home. With broken English, we learned from him that they were farm workers and had raised 6 children in this tiny hut. They said goodbye with a warm smile, and we thought about their warmth and continued to Nuwara Eliya. We didn't like the city itself. A couple of pretty English colonial buildings, but otherwise very loud and chaotic. When we stopped at a leek harvest on the way back, a man wanted to give us leeks. Because we showed interest in their work, because we smiled at them, or just like that, we don't know. Moved by the generosity, we drove back to Ella.
Once again in the morning we stand in front of closed doors at the train station. The train is still not running. Pity. Before we could think about what to do now, a tuk-tuk driver calls out to us. Good price, my friends. He wanted 3,000 rupees for the trip to Kandy, but we decided to take the bus and paid 300 rupees for both of us, 10 times less than for the tuk-tuk. On the same evening we visited the temple of the Tooth of Kandy. It was very impressive to attend a ceremony and watch the people pray.
The next morning we got on the first bus to Sigiriya, the Lion Rock. We found the entrance fee of $30 per person to be quite a lot. Of course, locals only pay a fraction. There wasn't much going on that day and we were very lucky that a group of young monks climbed up the many steps in front of us to the former royal seat. It was like going back in time. The monks in their orange robes and the mystical surroundings let us immerse ourselves in a dream world. For us, Sigiriya was definitely one of the highlights of our Sri Lanka trip. Our trip was now coming to an end and we made our way to Negombo the next morning to spend our last night near the airport. We still had an afternoon and rented bikes to explore the area. The northern part of Negombo consists of beach hotels and is dedicated to tourism. Our destination was the big fish market. In the evening we bought 2 beers in a wine shop and looked for a quiet spot on the beach to end our trip. A young man passed us several times and we started talking. He asked us why we are sitting here alone on the beach. When we replied that we are enjoying the peace and quiet alone, he just said, "Don't you like people?" This sentence has often crossed our minds, but we like people. But in our hectic world we long for rest. From the perspective of the young Sri Lankan, completely incomprehensible. We love Sri Lanka and we will come back for sure.